On today's show, the Cavs have lost the first two games of the series against the Indiana Pacers, but I do think there are a couple of reasons to believe they can come back and win this series. Plus, we will discuss yesterday's last 2-minute report that came out and did not have very good news for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's all straight ahead on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I just want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor as we get started here. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That is LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. The Cleveland Cavaliers have one more day before Game 3 against the Indiana Pacers, where they will look to fight back after losing the first two games of this series in Cleveland. Doing so on the road will, of course, be a very difficult task for a team that is beat up. And I do think that there are some reasons to believe that this team can become just the sixth team in the NBA to overcome an 0-2 deficit when losing the first two games at home. I think there are some things that are working in the Cavs' favor. I think that there are some things that are bound to turn for them. And I want to discuss those coming up in a bit. But I want to start with the last 2-minute report that came out yesterday. And I had been sort of refreshing my phone throughout the afternoon, waiting for it to be released, because the NBA does release this every time, regular season, postseason. Every time there's a game that is within 3 points at any point in the final 2 minutes, they release the last 2-minute report. If you're new to this, what this is basically the NBA publicly releases whether or not the officiating crew got calls correct or incorrect, or whether or not there should have been a call, or maybe there was a call that was wrong, should not have been whistled. And of course, there are typically mistakes, because referees make mistakes in every game, whether it's the final 2 minutes, whether it's the first 2 minutes. Mistakes are made because they're human. They're bound to make mistakes. And before I dive into this, because I do think it's an important discussion to have, I want to make clear that the Cavs did not lose this game because of the officiating errors that we are about to discuss. They lost this game because they failed to execute. It's not Tony Brothers' fault that the Cavs couldn't inbound the basketball. It's not Tony Brothers' fault that the Cavs couldn't get defensive stops. Tony Brothers not the guy that made the three-pointer at the end of the game for the Indiana Pacers. That was Tyrese Haliburton. So it is not explicitly the fault of the officiating crew that the Cavs lost this game. That said, of course, the last 2-minute report says, well, they didn't exactly help the Cavs either. So there were 3 incorrect non-calls in the last 2-minute report from Game 2. One of them was a defensive 3 seconds against Donovan Mitchell that the league says should have been called. I think it's very rare to see a defensive 3 seconds call pop up in one of these last 2-minute reports, but if it should have been called, it should have been called. The other 2 calls that were missed were double lane violations, where the NBA said, well, both teams actually entered early on Indiana Pacers free throw attempts. The attempt by Pascal Siakam that was missed, that led to, I believe, Aaron Nesmith is one that flew in there and dunked for 2 points, essentially erasing the fact that Siakam missed 2 free throws. And one on the final free throw of the game, which Tyrese Haliburton missed and then got his own offensive rebound and then hit the game-winning three-pointer seconds later. So they said because both teams entered the lane prematurely that it should have been a jump ball at midcourt. Now, obviously, there is no way of knowing what would have happened on a jump ball. Would have been, I believe, any 2 players on the floor can take part in it. Miles Turner was on the floor. Jared Allen was on the floor. Those are the 2 that would have taken part in the jump ball. In the first 2 games of the series for the opening tip, the Pacers won both of them, but game 2, Jared Allen won the tip. It was just that one of the Pacers raced into the backcourt and grabbed the ball, or front court and grabbed the ball, I guess, for them. So it could have gone either way. It would have, and I think that this is the important part of this. If you're a Cavs fan, this is what the anger stems from. It would have erased 2 points. Like, that call very clearly just erases 2 points off the board for the Indiana Pacers, and the probability of the Cavs blowing that game, which I still maintain they have nobody to blame but themselves, goes down pretty drastically. Even if Indiana wins the tip, like, they have to go another who knows how long before they score. They don't instantly get 2 points off of a missed free throw the way that they did. And then after that, you don't know that Donovan Mitchell's offensive foul occurs either. So those are two things to keep in mind. And then the one that I think I have the bigger issue with, or maybe I think that fans should have the bigger issue with, is, I mean, that one because it immediately removes 2 points. But I think the final one is the big one, because I thought it was clear watching that Tyrese Halliburton, as the shooter, did come across early, that the ball was like halfway there when he left. And that's maybe not necessarily why he got the rebound, because it was tipped to him. But I still thought that in real time, that looked like a call that probably should have been made. And I thought the first one in real time probably looked like a call that should have been made too. But you see guys that are not the shooter come in early all the time, and it doesn't get called. But when the shooter is one of the ones that is one of the offending players, if you see lane violations, that can tend to be where it gets called. And I think that was the worst miss. Of course, the Cavs should have gotten a stop. They should have grabbed the rebound. It should not have mattered. They did this to themselves. But I do think that is the worst miss of the three non-calls that the NBA deems were incorrect. And the Cavs, of course, are probably going to feel as if they got screwed to some extent. They feel very clearly about a certain way about how the officiating was in game one. Kenny Atkinson brought this stuff up after game two, and he had not watched the film at this point. I will be very curious the next time he speaks to see what his comments on these plays are. But he made comments about the officiating after game one. And I do know that the Cavs submitted some plays to the NBA, the Jarrett Allen dunk, which the NBA, I told them, hey, we got that one wrong. The Evan Mobley play, NBA told them we got that one wrong. I don't think the NBA thinks that they got the DeAndre Hunter play wrong, which I do think they're kind of just going to back up the officiating crew that goes to replay, even though I think that was maybe the most egregious of those three plays. But the Cavs have had officiating gripes throughout the series, and I don't expect that to stop now after this last 2-minute report comes out, because it very, very clearly impacted the way that game ended. That said, the Cavs need to be the team that closes the game better. They led by 7 with under a minute left. It should not matter outside of, something horrifically called, like a flagrant foul that totally changes the game. It should not have mattered what the officiating crew called at that point. The Cavs should have found a way to win that game. And then the last part of this that I want to talk about is this is all kind of pointless. I think it's worth talking about because people are upset about it. It very clearly impacted the game, but we didn't need the NBA to put out this report to say, hey, we screwed up. It doesn't change the series. The Cavs are now suddenly tied at 1 game each going to Indy for game 3. They're still down 0-2. The fact that the crew missed those calls does not change what happened. It doesn't make anybody feel better. It probably makes everybody, at least on Cleveland's side of things, feel worse that not only did they choke and blow this game, but that the Pacers were kind of aided in doing so by the officiating crew. I'm sure the Cavs don't feel better about their performance because of it. They probably feel a little bit worse. But who is this for? Like, I understand that people want accountability for the officials, and I get that, and I do think that there should be some. I think that they have a very, very difficult job. I think overall, and if you watch basketball at any other level, and I cannot believe I'm about to defend officials here, but if you watch basketball at any other level, high school, college, internationally with FIBA, the NBA, the G League, the NBA has by far the best officials in the world. They're going to miss calls. They're not going to miss them at the same frequency that I think referees at every other level of basketball do, but they are going to miss calls. There should be some sort of accountability. I just don't think that releasing this report in this fashion is the way to do so, because this doesn't help anybody. It doesn't make anybody feel better. It probably makes a lot of people feel worse. It doesn't change the outcome. All it does is bring back the spotlight onto the missed calls, which in real time, I felt as if Tyrese Halliburton left early. I know I saw people on social media commenting on it on Tuesday night about the lack of lane violation calls that very clearly did impact the end of that game. There needs to be some sort of accountability for officials. I just don't think that the last 2-minute report is it. It doesn't do anything except make everybody mad all over again. That's what happened on Wednesday night when the last 2-minute report came out. I don't know what the answer for accountability is, but I think we're far enough along now where it's probably not this. Again, the Cavs did not lose this game because of those blunders by the officials. It did not help their cause, but they lost this game because they could not close it out, because they could not inbound the basketball, because they could not get stops, because they could not grab rebounds. And that's who they should be mad at. They should be mad at themselves for that. But the officials admitted they didn't help either. Okay, we're done with that. I said yesterday that I was going to skew positive on today's show because I do think that there are reasons why the Cavs can come back and win this series. I will tell you what those reasons are next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Maybe you need help with a marketing campaign, and Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results on a similar project before. Plus, posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you'll get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. And instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com, Upwork.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. I have to tell you, I thought Sunday night's game 1 was one of the best environments I have ever been in at an NBA game at Rocket Arena. It was absolutely incredible. Tuesday was good. I thought Sunday was much, much better. If the Cavs are back on, what would it be, next Tuesday for game 5? If they find a way to win in Indy, which I do think is going to happen, we're going to talk about that in a second, you're going to want to be in the building. And the way to get in the building is Game Time. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets. Even when demand is sky high, prices on the app actually go down as tip-off grows closer. Plus, the last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Last minute's not just sports either. You know, you can get last-minute tickets for other things on Game Time, like concerts, comedy, theater. I don't know what you want to go to, but I know Game Time can get you in the door. Plus, they've got the all-in pricing feature, which means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON, NBA for $20 off that first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. So the Cavs trail this series 2-0. And I think there are a few reasons why they should be optimistic heading into game 3. And the place I want to start, and I think there are a number of areas where it makes sense to start, but the place where I think it makes the most sense is the Cavs won 64 games. At various points this year, they won 16 consecutive games. They won 15 consecutive games. They won 12 consecutive games. Winning 4 straight games or winning 4 of the next 5 games, even if it's against a very good team, is not some monumental task. Like, it's their backs are against the wall because they have to go on the road and do it. They're going to have to win at least 2 road games to make this happen, possibly 3 road games to make this happen. Very difficult thing to do in the playoffs. That's why only 5 teams that have been in this spot before have done this. That's why it's a tough thing. And also truthfully. Like, home teams typically don't lose the first 2 games of a series. Like, it's a rare thing, partially because it's just not a super big sample size in the history of the NBA playoffs. But the Cavs won 64 games this year. Winning 4 of the next 5, or, the next 4 games straight, it's not crazy to think could happen. And some of the things from a true basketball sense that I think could go in the Cavs' favor, if you look at the first 96 minutes of the series, so the first 2 games, the Pacers won the first quarter pretty decidedly in game 1, and they won the fourth quarter pretty decidedly in game 2. And I think that those reasons are why they're up 2-0. Because if you look at the other 6 quarters, the Cavs either played at the same level as Indy or outplayed them. And I think that if you broke down all 8 quarters, the Cavs probably feel pretty good about how they've played in most of them. It's just those 2 quarters cost them 2 games. I do think that they can look in the mirror and say, we have, and this is especially true in game 2, we have outplayed the Pacers for most of this series. And we're the team that's down 0-2. Now, it's no guarantee they're going to continue to outplay the Pacers. Like, they have to still show up and do everything right and do it at a higher level than what they've done in the first 2 games. But it's not some crazy thing to think that they cannot keep outplaying Indy. Like, that should be the expectation. They are the number 1 seed. They have the second best record in basketball. They should expect to be able to outplay Indiana again, continuously. They should expect that to be able to do that every single game against any opponent, because the Cavs are that good. It obviously doesn't always happen, but they should be able to expect to do that. And this has gone wrong, partially because I think the Cavs have gotten a little bit unlucky. Give the Pacers credit for the things that they've done well, but the 3-point shooting is kind of the thing that I keep coming back to with the Cavs. Because this year, this Cleveland offense was so potent, partially because of how good they were from beyond the arc. They finished this season number 2 in the NBA in 3-point shooting percentage. They were great. They were great from beyond the arc, nearly start to finish. I know they had a lull in March, but other than that, they were fantastic as a shooting team. In the first round against the Miami Heat, the Cavs looked like the Cavs shooting the basketball. They absolutely demolished Miami from beyond the arc. The first 2 games of this series, the Cavs have been unrecognizable in that category. Now, part of it is, in game 2, they were without Darius Garland, who is an excellent 3-point shooter. They were without DeAndre Hunter, who is an excellent 3-point shooter. They were without Evan Mobley, who has developed into a pretty good 3-point shooter. But so far in this series, on wide open 3-point attempts, this is according to NBA.com, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 6 of 24. Now, there might be a conversation that they're not generating enough of those, and give the Pacers credit in that area. But making wide open 3-pointers at a 25% rate is awful. For context here, the Orlando Magic this year during the regular season were the worst 3-point shooting team in basketball. On wide open threes, they had the worst percentage on wide open threes. They shot 35.1% for the entire season on wide open 3-pointers. In the first 2 games of this series, the Cavs are shooting 10% worse from beyond the arc in wide open situations than the worst shooting team in basketball for the season. I just don't think that is something that's going to keep up. You want to say, okay, well, what about open threes? Open threes, not as good of a shot as wide open threes, but still a pretty good shot. The Cavs are shooting through 2 games, 9 of 35 on open 3-pointers. According to NBA.com, that is the nearest defender 4 to 6 feet away. That is considered open. That is, for those keeping track at home, 25.7%. So combined between open 3-pointers and wide open 3-pointers, in the first 2 games of this series, the Cavs are 15 of 59, 25.4%. For the season, the Cavs shot open 3-pointers at 37%. So they are shooting open 3-pointers 12% worse during the first 2 games of this series than who they have been during this season. Wide open 3-pointers during the season, the Cavs shot 42%, the best mark in the league on wide open threes. That means they are shooting 17% worse on wide open 3-pointers in games 1 and 2 against Indiana than they did for the full season. At a certain point, I would expect the team that shot 39.8% on open and wide open three-pointers during the season to look like that team. They are due for some positive movement in that area. I said after game 1, there's no way they'll shoot this bad again. Game 2, they didn't shoot that bad, but it was close. At some point, they're going to have like a second quarter against Miami where they hit 11 threes. Like they are going to explode from beyond the arc at some point. Now, for their sake, they need to hope that it's early in game 1, game 1 on the road. So game 3. They need to hope that this happens early and is something they can sustain on Friday. That is, I think, the biggest key to this game. If the Cavs make shots on Friday, if they just look like themselves offensively and make the shots that they have made all season long and in the playoffs before these 2 games, if they do that, I think they have a very good chance to win the series. I would not say that it's the most likely thing they're going to do that, and they need to sustain it. But if they start to look like the Cavs again, from a shooting standpoint, I like their chances much more than I like them right now. This is not an impossible situation for the Cavs. It's an improbable situation for the Cavs, but it's not an impossible situation for the Cavs. We've seen this franchise, I think, come back from much worse positions and win a series. It has happened before. It can happen right now. They need to start making three-pointers, not even at the rate they did during the regular season. They just can't be 10% worse than the worst shooting team in basketball on wide open threes. They can't be 5% worse on open three-pointers than the worst shooting team in basketball, which Orlando was at 29.8%. That is who the Cavs have been in the series. They've transformed from the best shooting team to the worst shooting team. That to me, and the injuries, I'll talk about that in a second, but that to me is the biggest reason why they're down 0-2. And I don't believe that is something that's going to keep up. And I think that's the biggest reason why it's okay to be optimistic about their chances winning 4 of the next 5 in this series. That's not the only thing I think the Cavs have in their favor. I'll tell you what else next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time that you had an urgent need, maybe a plumber or a different type of service provider, and maybe the first person you called didn't answer. Did you sit around and wait for them to call you back? Probably not. You probably moved on to the next person because you had a job that needed to get done, so you got it done. That is why you need Open Phone, because you don't want to miss out on that type of customer. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app, and the shared inbox feature is a game changer because your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. Right now, Open Phone offering Locked On Cavs listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That is openphone.com, openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDON-NBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. The Cleveland Cavaliers actually have a better chance of coming back in this series than you might think. And I know how things feel for fans after watching that just devastating, gut-wrenching Game 2 loss. I get it. I still, as I record this at 8:30 on Wednesday night, I still don't know that I've completely processed what I watched inside of Rocket Arena. But one of the things that I did during the day on Wednesday was I went on over to our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, because I am very interested to see how the odds makers handle this type of situation, because the Cavs entered this series as very heavy favorites. I believe they were minus 550 on FanDuel to win this series. Despite being down 0-2, they are the underdog now, as you would imagine, and as they should be, at plus 164. So if you were to bet $100 on the Cavs winning this series, you would win $164. That's not crazy odds. Like, that is not a significant underdog. And I talked with a friend of mine who works in this industry. He works in the odds making industry. And I basically asked him to kind of put this into percentages for me. So this is basically the implied thought that the Cavs will win this 40% of the time. That 40% of the time, the Cavs are going to come back in this series and win 4 of the next 5 games. We know NBA history tells us this does not happen 40% of the time, but I think that this situation is a little bit unique. So the next thing that I went to look for and said, okay, well, if the odds makers think that the Cavs have a 40% chance of winning the series, you can also on FanDuel bet on the correct series score. At the start of the series, you could have bet the Cavs to sweep, the Cavs win in 5, 6, 7. You could bet the Pacers to sweep or win in 5, 6, 7. Whatever the outcome is, you can bet on this is how I think the series is going to go. And you can still do that with FanDuel at whatever point during the series. So right now, the shortest odds, which says is the most likely thing to happen, is the Cavs winning in 7 games. The Cavs winning in 7 games is plus 270 on FanDuel. The Cavs winning in 6 games, so winning the next 4, is plus 710. Now, part of the reason why the Cavs are at plus 270 to win in 7 games is because the Pacers do have more options. Like, you can bet the Pacers to win 4-0, 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. So you do have to think that the odds makers are spreading that out just a little bit because they have more optionality to how they can win. And if the Cavs win this series, it has to be in 6 or 7 games at this point. And that to me is just interesting that they think the most likely outcome, which I would have guessed was going to be Pacers in 6, which is actually the third most likely one. I would have guessed that would have been the most likely. Instead, the most likely thing, according to FanDuel, is the Cavs winning this series in 7 games. I don't know how probable that is. Plus 270 is not exactly short odds, but it is the shortest of the 6 options left. I just find that interesting. And maybe that is something that gives you a little bit more hope. The other 2 things that I look at, maybe that's not a reason to believe the Cavs will do this. I just thought it was interesting and worth passing along. But I do think that these 2 days off, and again, recording this Wednesday night about 8:30, so we don't have injury updates. I don't think the Cavs at this point know who is going to be available, who is not going to be available on Friday in Game 3. But I think there's a chance that they are maybe not at full strength, but closer to full strength for Game 3 than they were Game 2. I don't know if Darius Garland's going to play. I don't know if Evan Mobley's going to play. I don't know if DeAndre Hunter is going to play. But at this point, I would guess that at least one of them plays. I would guess that the Cavs have more on the floor for them than they did in Game 2. That, I think, is a big deal. Donovan Mitchell getting 2 days off to recover from, he's dealing with a calf strain. 2 days off to recover before Game 3, I think is a big boost to the Cavs. I think that these 2 days off come at the exact perfect time for the Cavs. And if they win Game 3, Game 4 becomes a very, very important game. I think Game 3 is obviously a very, very important game, more important for them than it is the Pacers. The Pacers are going to feel very good going into Game 4 no matter what happens in Game 3 because they really just have to win one of these 2 games, I think, to feel really good about their chances to win this series. But if the Cavs win Game 3 and come out of that healthy, I would really like their chances in Game 4. And if they come back to Cleveland tied at 2, they've reclaimed home court advantage and feel much better about themselves. I almost think that this is a situation where it's like, you know what? Don't let us get 1. I think that the Cavs can say that. I think that they can, and you often hear teams say that when they're down 3-0, and it becomes a meme, right? The whole don't let us get 1 type thing. It becomes a meme. But I do think that's kind of it for the Cavs. I privately said this before Game 2, that I thought whoever wins Game 2 is going to win the series. And at this point, like, I would pick Indy to win this series. I don't think that's a controversial thing. But if the Cavs win Game 3, I think you start to be swayed. Like, if the Cavs find a way to win Game 3, and they are, as of right now, favored in that game, on the early look-ahead line from FanDuel, they are 2-point favorites as I record this. It's kind of like, don't let them get 1. If they get 1, You can find a way to get another one. And if they get another one, if it's 2-2 coming back to Cleveland, you really like the Cavs' chances in this series. Now, they have a lot of work to do to get there, but it's not some crazy thought that it could happen. And then the final reason why you should be optimistic about the Cavs is the Cavs have the best player on the floor. They do. Tyrese Halliburton's awesome. He's not overrated, as some Cavs fans were chanting during this series. He's not overrated. He's not overrated as fans were chanting. He's really good, but he's not Donovan Mitchell. What we saw on Tuesday night from Donovan Mitchell was a true superstar performance. And I know Tyrese hit that shot. I didn't think he was very good in that game. I thought the Cavs did a really good job taking away the things he wanted to do. And the Pacers don't have an answer for Donovan. He needs to make shots from the outside at a much, much better rate than he has so far. He is 2 of 18 from 3 in the series. That's not going to get it done. But he is the superstar in this series. And anytime you have the superstar in the series, you've got a chance. It's not a great chance. It's improbable, but it's not impossible. There are reasons for optimism. The Cavs have outplayed the Pacers in 2 games, and they're unlucky to be down 0-2 so far. They've got the best player, and shooting luck is bound to break for them sooner than later. Maybe they get it done. Maybe they don't. I don't know. It's not impossible. It's improbable. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. As we get out of here, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back tomorrow talking more about Game 3 between the Cavs and the Pacers.